Item 2 on the agenda, Special Committee on Constituent Email, City Council's use of electronic resources and information. This is coming back to us. Councilor Clark had some questions and thoughts that he wanted to share with us. I think we've been through this once already, so I think we should move right to addressing his issues. Councilor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. Terry Clark, Ward 3 Councilor. I want to thank you for visiting this issue. The standard agreement that staff has been using for a number of years is a very good document. It is a little bit out of date and probably should be looked at with some of the future technologies in mind, but I think it's a good idea to adopt that. I'm having a bit of a problem with at least 3 of the additions to that, and they're under the unacceptable use sections. It's I think staff described them as fine-tuning possibilities. Although well-meaning, I think that as I've been doing my newsletters, which I started 5 years ago when I was first elected, adopting these 3 sections into the report would essentially stop me from sending a newsletter. I would not dare to send another newsletter. It has connotations of doing something wrong. There really isn't a definition of what you can do to me, even if I did. So it's a funny little thing. Let me describe what I do.
Before you go on, there's always the counselor discipline process. So if somebody did something out of line, you could activate that. So there is something we can do to counselors if they do something they shouldn't. With that said, I guess what I'd kind of like is you said 3 issues. I mean, your letter has more than that.
Well, they're really pretty much related to 3 particular issues, but they spin off of one another. And I think in my questions here, one question brings up several others, and that's what I mean. So I think it'd be easier if I could just explain to you what it is I do on a technical level, so that you might be able to understand when I question a couple of the suggestions that are being made. Essentially, I have a bulk email program that I use. It's called Mac Mail, and what it does is you import an Excel spreadsheet of a list of you have fields with email, first name, last name, etc., like that. You import that into the program. You switch to another part of the program, and you write a document, much like Word, Microsoft Word or something like that. The third portion of it is called settings, and that's where you actually interact with the Internet. And in that, I use my own server with all of my own numbers and everything. It doesn't really use any city resources. But what it does down on the bottom, where I put in my actual email address for when it shows up, you've gotten emails where it shows this is who it's from, and if you have any questions, this is who you should reply to. And in that section, I put in my city email address, tmclark@ci.keen, etc. And I assume that's why the city has issued all of us email addresses so that we could use them. The problem, number one, the email address itself is an official. It's intellectual property. It is a piece of the city's network, because when somebody reads my email, an automatic, a reply comes back telling me whether or not it was read or not read. And that goes back to my city email address, which is actually on the Gmail account that the city uses. The city doesn't really have its own server. I don't believe it's a Gmail thing that we use. But in any case, it comes back and it becomes part of the city record. Under one of these, I won't be able to use my my city email address, and I think that's impractical. I mean, I don't understand. It just brings up more problems if I have to send out a newsletter, using my personal email, then I'm not really communicating with anybody as a city councilor. I mean, and I don't know about you, but I don't want to use my personal email when I'm sending emails out to potentially hundreds or thousands of people who I represent. It's not the way. I don't think it was meant for us to do business. Okay, now number one. Part of my email message is we all get them in our email. Their news releases sent out by either Public Works or one of the departments telling about activities that are going on in the city, whether it be a road closure. They're going to be working on Main Street, so please avoid that Friday morning. Or the Parks and Recs department will have a bus trip to Boston or something like that, or the pools will be open next week. Those sort of things. And that's what I capture those and put them together in a newsletter fashion and email them out. Well, one of the new policies would ban altering or revising what they call official city notices or communications. Those are news releases that are routinely edited when you send them to the newspaper, to the radio station. You can only compare what you get in your email box to what appears in the Sentinel the next day to see what I mean. I can understand not wanting people to change the meaning of a message, but to actually edit it for clarity and brevity, to send out a notice on a road closure. Instead of using 200 words, I can use 50. But to do that, I have to get rid of a lot of the clutter. I have to apologize. My degree is in journalism, and I just write that way. I don't like a lot of superfluous stuff in a communication. I like to do it simply and clearly. And this policy here won't allow me to do that. I'll have to just cut and paste and just send it out the way it is, and that makes for a very bulky, long newsletter. And it's just not good communication. And then, if you do want to change them, it says you have to ask permission. And it doesn't say who you ask permission from. Now, in one scenario, if a city councilor wanted to alter a message and rewrite it for brevity or clarity or what have you, do they ask staff's permission? And if they ask staff's permission, I mean, doesn't that really change it's inconsistent with a legal relationship between city councilors and staff, isn't it? Okay, so then we don't ask staff. We have to come back and we have to ask the city council. Well, there's a road closure on Thursday. I get the notice from the city on Monday, Tuesday. I have to come and ask the city council permission to change that. That's going to take 3 weeks to get permission to change, a message that's going to, which content's going to happen on Thursday. That's just not workable. Like I said, I think simply saying that you not alter the meaning or purpose of it would be adequate. In any case, so you can work on that one there. And the infringement upon the copyright of intellectual property, that means your city email address, and that means the seal. I'd like to ask what the difference is between a newsletter where I put, a banner that says Councilor Terry Clark with a nice historical picture of downtown Keene with the city seal on it, and the message that staff puts together on Facebook. They're using a city seal with a message, and they're sending it out electronically. I mean, is it really any different than letterhead? I mean, back in the old days, we're all just used to just sending out letterhead. And I think that's where the problem comes in a lot of these things, is we're still thinking about paper. We're not thinking about electronics. We're not thinking about how people communicate today. And we're trying to, I guess, it just creates a problem where no problem really exists. So I don't think that restricting me from using a city seal, I mean, after all, I think that if the city issued me an email address and that intended me to communicate with people using it, and I'm an elected official, and if I were to write a letter to somebody, I'd put the city seal on the top of the letterhead. What's the difference? I mean, I'm talking as a city councilor. I'm not talking as a personal, individual. I'm talking about as a city councilor. I mean, as long as I don't bastardize this logo and change the logo or anything like that, it's just a city seal that you put there saying that this is from your city councilor from the city of Keene, just like you would if you were writing a letter, just like the city seal that the city staff puts whenever they put an announcement on Facebook or Twitter or whatever like that. So infringing upon that, I don't think it's actually possible for a city councilor to infringe upon any of these things, like my email address. I think I have a right to use my email address when I'm sending correspondence to my constituents about city business. I think I have a right to use the city seal. Why wouldn't I be able to? I don't understand why that would be restricted. The big one, though, is on the email addresses themselves. This third one would ban the use, would not allow me to go out into the marketplace and buy a email list, a legal email list that meets all of the legal requirements. It meets the ethical requirements of ICANN, which is the operating authority of the Internet. I don't understand the rationale behind not allowing me to get those names and to send out communications to those people once I've recognized that, by going through the checklist, that yes, these are actual registered voters of the city of Keene. This is where they live, and this is the correct person. I'm sending them communication about things that are happening in the city of Keene. I don't understand, especially because the city of Keene does not provide us with a list of email addresses. I mean, they'll give us mailing addresses that are on the checklist, but that again, that's thinking about the old days of sending mail. It's not talking about the future and how people communicate today. That's not how people communicate today. And I'll give you a good example. The city of Keene, I was happy to help them with this. When I first started this newsletter, they asked me my advice on how to do this, because we were, in one instance, we were sending out postcards to people to remind them to register their dogs. It was costing hundreds of dollars in postage. Whereas if you could just do it with an email blast, which I think they've started doing, it saves money. It saves a lot of money. And they even asked me to put a message on the bottom of my newsletter directing them to the city website if they would like to receive regular messages from the city of Keene. Then you can go to the website and you can sign up for Parks and Recs news or storm news or any combination of what have you. As long as those names are not on, those email addresses are not on the do not email list, that's just like making a phone call. as long as they're not on the don't phone list. It's totally legal, it's ethical, it's a standard practice. There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just the way that we do business today. This is how society works. And I think that I should have the right to do that. And if I can't do a combination of all of these things, then I'm not going to be able to effectively send out a newsletter. And I think we have to think about not just us sitting here with the gray hair. There are going to be young people like Emily and even younger moving in here and taking our positions, and that's the way they do communicate today. They're not going to understand this snail mail stuff. They don't do that stuff. They don't understand that. So going forward, when we're all gone here, this policy will still be here, and it's still going to stifle people who want to communicate with their constituents. I don't think it's necessary to go so draconian with this. As I said, the policy itself on the proper use and not abusing it, which I don't think anybody does, I certainly haven't, is a good thing to do. But we probably got left out of it as an oversight. But go ahead and do that. But don't do these add-ons. It's just going to stifle people from communicating with their constituents, and I just don't know how democratic is that.